Hey guys, welcome back to our build of the 300 SL. Um, so just a couple of things to note. We've gone ahead and the chassis is pretty much finished up. All the suspension is in place, the diff, fuel tank, and the wheels are all in the chassis ready to go. We're just doing some final kind of detail work on the engine, and then we're going to go ahead and throw that in as well. So the chassis is pretty much done. But in between the finishing off the chassis, if you remember from the last time, we were going ahead and polishing off the body. So this is kind of where we left off, and as you can see, it's okay. We've still got some orange peel going on and a little bit of hazing from using the Tamiya polishing compounds. So in between then and now, what we've gone ahead and done is actually I was made aware of a new, not sort of method, but some new products that I wasn't originally aware of, that have just kind of blown the whole finishing portion of a car body out of the water, I think, at least. And this was from a friend of mine, Carlos Starton, and this guy makes like the most perfect finish you would ever see on he does mainly does bikes, but any body panel part, and it's just this deep crystal clear polished surface that's absolutely nuts. So in this episode, this is what we're gonna I'm gonna reveal to you guys and show you what he's kind of passed on to me as far as the products and the methods and how to actually do this. So I'm gonna go grab those and then we'll come back and we'll show you how it's all done. Okay, so basically there's a couple of things that we're gonna need to basically get this started. So just some general paper towel. I have Kim wipe. It's just a little bit more in large quantities. I can get it, and it's easier and cheaper than actual paper towel. The next set is some sort of a microfiber cloth. I've got the Tamiya range of microfiber cloths. Non-weave, that sort of thing, anti-static. These work just fine for this process to clean it. And then, of course, is the clear. So before, if you remember, we're using Zero Paint's 2K clear, so the regular one, not the diamond finish. And it seemed like there was a lot of hazing going on. So I asked Carlos, I was like, what is this hazing? And so in his experiments, because he's done a lot of it, is the Zero Paint's 2K doesn't fully harden. It stays quite soft. And this was done with, various ratios, but, it's not as good as it could be. It doesn't get super hard. And he was even using the Diamond 2K, so they're the same basic 2K clears, the two-part urethanes, and he recommended that I get the Gravity 2K system. So again, it's the same the same clear, an activator, and a thinner, and his recommendation was to go with 3 parts of the clear, 1.5 parts of the activator. Mix these up first prior to adding 1.5 parts of the thinner. So we went ahead and we resprayed the Mercedes body with that Gravity's 2K clears. And I said, okay, well, from there then, it's a regular 2K, but how are you getting the polish? And so he told me about a company called Shoal Concepts that makes these polishing compounds. And so These are available through CarPro US. You can get, these ones are the you can get the larger containers, which I believe are like, twice the size. But these ones, for our modeling purposes anyways, are the 250 gram containers. So make sure if you do want to order those that you do get the smaller containers, unless you're doing full-size car bodies and you're doing a crap ton of model car bodies. But basically what he recommended was we get the S3 Gold XXL. So this is a heavy cutting compound that'll get rid of all these smaller sanding marks, and then the S17, and then the S30 Plus. There are a couple of things on eBay where you can get the sets of the 250 gram containers, but they have the S40 Plus in them instead of the S30. Carlos hasn't really gone ahead and used a lot of the S40. He's mainly used the S30. I can tell you that this S30 is just fine. Unless you own a real car, there's really not any use of the S40. Maybe down in the future I'll try it out, in a fourth stage to this whole compound process, but I was told it's not necessary. So that's pretty much it. So we need our paper towel, our microfiber cloths, the gravity 2K clear system, and these 3 compounds from Shoal Concepts. So those are all the products you're going to need for this. And so now we're going to go ahead and start. Actually, I will say this first is Carlos likes to do his stuff by hand. That's great. Nothing against him. But I've gone ahead and I've done it with the hand polish and with machine polish, and I can't really seem to see a difference in my process. So these you can get on Amazon. There's 2 different kinds. You can get these kind of heavier disc cutting wheels, but there's also these soft cotton ones. You got to make sure, because there's these ones which are the cotton polishing ones, and then there's cotton ones that are like a hard cotton, whereas these are nice and fluffy and soft. So just be careful that you get these soft polishing cotton ones rather than the hard ones that you get normally through Dremel or any other rotary tool companies. And make sure you don't get the purple ones that are abrasive. They're kind of basically like a Scotch pad on a Dremel. The way I used these was I initially did the first. So I used the S3 first after spraying the clear coat, and then we went over with some 2000 to get rid of all of the dust that might have settled in, some 2000 grit, then some 3000 grit to kind of smooth out all of the orange peel, and then some 5000 grit to kind of polish that back a bit. You could move on to say a 6000 or an 8000, but it's kind of not necessary. So basically after the wet sanding, we went ahead and did a first cut of the S3 using these cutting wheels. Sorry, not cutting wheels, but polishing wheels. They're a bit more aggressive. We did 1 pass of that, cleaned it off, then went ahead and did a second pass of the S3 with the polishing wheels, and then cleaned that off, and then we moved on to the S17 and the S30. So we're going to go ahead and go through that whole process here today. And basically what we're going to end up with is something like this, where compared to, see, you can see all that hazing there compared to this clear. And that's basically what we're going after. So we're going to start on the body. We've gone ahead and I've started on the back side here with some 3000. There's still a couple of spots we need to touch up here and there. You can see but we're going to go ahead and use the 3000, then move to the 5000, and then we'll go ahead and start using the polishing compounds for that. Alright, so I guess I'll just show you guys how I'm actually doing most of the sanding work here. This is with some 3M, what is it here, the Trizact 3000. So I've already moved on from the 2000, but we're just kind of redoing it. So basically what I've got here is some water that has a little bit of dish soap into it to help break the water tension, and then we're basically going, you know, with the body lines, and we're doing, you know, nice smooth passes across the entire body. We're not going to focusing in one spot and then moving around. We're doing the full length of the fender here. Okay, and then an important part for this is, you know, is the feel. So as you go across and cut through the 2K, you're gonna feel, and sometimes you'll hear the difference between when you start cutting into the clear and you've got a nice smooth surface versus, you know, on a fresh, you know, clean panel that's not being you know, sanded at all. So we've kind of gone through that there. I've got my paper towel here. And I'm just gonna kind of dab off the water from the little sandpaper, and then we'll just go ahead and wipe all the water off. And then you can see here, you know, how smooth that finishes, and that's with the 3000. So we're just trying to break all the orange peel down. And you can see here there's even a little spot that hasn't really been taken care of, even from the previous you know, compounds and polishing. So there's still, you know, still a little bit of cut going on there, and we're basically gonna, you know, bring it down to where we're happy, where we can go ahead and polish it. So even you can see up here some of that orange peel going on right in the front of the fender. Just very minute, but again, this process is going to help take care of all of that. So sandpaper, dip in water, and then back at it. And you're honestly probably going to spend 4 to 5 times if you do it this way. You know, if you're happy with just throwing on a gloss coat and then calling it a day and put it on the shelf or take some photos, you know, that's fine. If you want it that way, but you know, if you really want that sort of showroom, you know, high shine to your finished pieces, then you're gonna easily spend at least 4 to 5 times the amount of time working on sanding and buffing and polishing than you are on any part of your build. You're gonna spend all that time trying to get the perfect finish on your body, and that's what's going to drive you to make, you know, no mistakes and not, you know, kind of get in the slump of just throw a gloss on it and call it a day. You know, if you want improvement, if you want to keep working on it, then you've really got to spend the time and effort going through all of these steps to get it to the best that it can be. So, you know, if you're comfortable with just throwing on the gloss coat and calling it a day, fine. But if you really want to, you know, stretch your skills and stretch your the limits of what you can do as a, you know, as a person, and get, you know, you want to win trophies, then this is how you're going to do it, by getting some really hard work in, and, you know, spending all that time making sure everything is perfect each and every step of the way. And then, you know, and then you're going to get, you know, results speak for themselves. So the one thing that I guess we should mention is with the 2K, because it can deal with the sanding a lot better. It's a lot harder using the Gravity 2K clears. I was advised that if you've got like decal, so if you're doing like something like a NASCAR body, for instance, you do an intermediate, like say X22 Tamiya clear, lay the decals down on a smooth surface, yada yada yada, throw on an intermediate coat of like say X22 or the GX Mr. Hobby clears, sand that down to make sure all of the the decals on the surface aren't not showing any of the decal film, and even those out, and then going through with the clear coat at that stage, and then possibly having to go through with another coat of clear after you've sanded the first one down. So like if it's at this point here, then maybe just throw on another couple of coats of clear, and then do it that way. The way that Carlos recommended I do it was to go over the body when you're applying these the clear coat, is to go over the body with a nice light tack coat first, just to get everything started, and you're going to be waiting about 5 to 10 minutes between that coat and the next coat. The next coat's going to be a little bit heavier, so not so much a light tack coat, but a light pass coat on it, just to get some more clear down on there, and this to act as another kind of tack coat for the next layer going on. The third coat is going to be in an intermediate coat, so not so much a heavy coat, but a little bit heavier than the last, so you're medium coat onto that, and then your fourth coat's going to be your heavy coat, so you're nice and spraying a nice heavy layer down, not a wet coat entirely, but a nice heavy coat to build up that that clear on the surface, and then from there you're going on with your nice big wet coat to kind of finally polish it and finish it all off. The way I did it was I did it the same, but at the end, when the clear went on, was I kind of went over it with a quick kind of blast of Mr. Leveling Thinner, just because I wasn't sure how well everything was going to level out. I saw quite a bit of orange peel going on. Now that might have leveled out, but I wasn't aware of it, so I just went ahead and put on a light misting of Mr. Leveling Thinner, just to make sure that that was down. Now the big thing with this is that once that clear coat is on, you are putting it in an area where there's not a lot of dust. Hopefully that's a little bit warm, not 40 degrees warm, but relatively warm, like say in the mid 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. Not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, so you can piss off with that one, but in a nice warm area that's dust free, and you're leaving this for 5 days. So some people say I'll leave your clear coat for 24 hours, like the Zero Paint system says to leave for 24 before you start sanding or polishing. This you want to leave for 5 days, and that's going to make sure that the clear coat is fully hardened, so that way when you start coming in with polishing compounds, that it's going to be super hard, and that way you're not going to be worried about sanding through a soft layer of clear coat, and then that'll be that. So so we're going to keep going ahead and polishing away with our 3000, and then move on to the the 5000, and then we're going to go ahead and start using the compounds. So I'll see you when everything's done sanding. Okay, so we've gone through the process of sanding the body down from the clear. We've gone through the 2000 first, and then we went to the 3000, and that's where I met up with you, and then we went and did the rest of the body with the 3000, and then down to finally the 5000. So at this stage we're ready to go ahead and use the compounds. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've washed the body down under some running water, and then with a white, nice fine cloth, is just to make sure I wipe down the body of all of the you know, the soap and the water and the extra dust or anything that's been on the surface that might interfere when we start doing the polishing. So now you can use the compounds, like the polishing compounds, you can use them to, by hand. You can use them that way. Carlos suggested doing it that way as well. Now he has these massive freaking arms that makes him look like the nastiest son of a bitch you'd ever want to see, or me. So that's why I don't think he goes to the gym. I think he just does this all day, and that's why he's got such big freaking arms. But he suggested doing it with by hand, so you can accomplish it by hand. However, I kind of did an experiment and found that there was really no difference when I did by hand versus when I was doing it by machine, and it was a little bit quicker. So that can kind of play into, you know, depending on if you have sort of a Dremel or a Proxon, or if you prefer doing things the old-fashioned way by hand. So it's at that point here where it's whether you want to move it by hand or move it by machine. That's all up to personal preference, so take with that as you will. But anyways, we're going to head and start moving on with the compounds. So what I've got here is the Scholl Concepts S3 Gold XXL. I've marked these because I have the Dremel tools, like the rotary heads, and I've kind of put some little tape around the edges so that I know, hey, this is with this one, so I'm not mixing up grits or compounds. So we're going to go ahead and start moving along with that. So I'm going to grab my Dremel here, hook it on up. So now I'm using Dremel 3000 with the flex head, and this is at the lowest speed setting, which reads a 5, so I assume it's like around 5,000. I have not measured it, so I do not know. And so I'm going to put on the yellow heads, which are the yellow polishing heads. You can get these from Amazon. They come in like a pack of, I don't know, is it 20 or 25? But that's the case. So I'm going to demonstrate, because it gets quite loud and I've got it attached to the desk, so it's going to create some vibrations, which will move the camera around. So I'm just going to kind of demonstrate it for you by hand first, and then obviously you're going to get the memo with regards to how to use the Do-It machine polish. So basically you're going to take a nice little lump with a fresh Q-tip, and we're just going to do some dots across. So if any of you are familiar with working on auto bodies, this is kind of like the same thing. So we're just going to kind of spread the compound around. So I'm just going to work on this small section here first, and then kind of move around with the body. So we've got it there. Now normally at this point I would come in with the tool and I would start to make even passes and kind of working the compound around in a nice sort of film, and then we'd leave it to sort of dry. So basically we'll come ahead and do that here. So we're going to work in little semicircles, working around the body. So basically take it with the Q-tip, which is kind of mimicking the Dremel head, and we're moving down along the body here. And this is why the polishing compound is still sort of wet, so it's not completely drying and it's not coming up when we pass over it. crevices. Normally I'll do the all the smaller kind of crevices, like in here with these fender flares. I'm just going to come in there by hand, polish it up because it's difficult to get to with the rotary tool. Okay, so that's done there. And so at that point then we kind of leave this to kind of set, and usually about 2 to 3 minutes, so we'll come back after that. Okay, so in the meantime I went ahead and did the rest of the body with the Dremel and the yellow polishing heads just for the first pass. The rest of the time I used the white cotton polishing ones. Just a thing to note, guys, the reason why you know, we were taking the Q-tip and spreading little dots around beforehand is just to minimize the spray. So if you are doing it with, you feel like you want to do it with the Dremel, make it a little bit faster, any sort of rotary tool, wear safety glasses, because like on mine here you can see all the stuff that's flinging close to your eyes. I wear glasses, so that's, you know, an added bonus for me. But if you're doing this with a rotary tool, even if you're spreading the compound around to minimize the splash, wear them just in case. Even if you get a dinky pair from like Canadian, you know, some sort of hardware store, just do that, just to kind of, you know, protect your eyes. And you know, I haven't read the MSDS on this stuff, but I'm pretty sure you don't want to get it in your eyes regardless. So anyways, moving along. So with that all done, you know, we've got the compound spread around. So if we were doing this by hand, then we'd go ahead and get a microfiber cloth. I like the Tamiya ones just because they're colored and they're a little bit more fine. But you know, that's just me. So we're going to basically go ahead and start in one portion of the body, and we're just going to kind of we're going to work away all the compound in little small circles, and we're kind of going to do it the same way we would, you know, wax a car. So we're starting in one small area and then work our way out and around. I'm just going to get inside the crevice here. Okay, and we'll just do this top section here, and that way you can see kind of how this stuff works. And every so often, if I notice there's a little bit, you know, with the residue, it kind of looks a little bit hazy, just let's move over to a fresh kind of portion of the polishing, the microfiber cloth, just to make sure I'm bringing it all up. Okay, so that's basically where we're at after the first stage of cutting. So you can see it's still a little hazy in here, and that's okay. We're going to go ahead and clean off the body in the same sort of manner like this, and then we'll go ahead and we'll start putting on the second layer, or the second sort of pass with the cutting compound, and then we'll be able to move on to the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and do the second step, and then you guys aren't really going to see it, but the same sort of the same sort of method, except you know, with you can do a second polish by hand. You know, Carlos said he's done somewhere, you know, sometimes he's done one, sometimes he's gone ahead and done like 2 or 3, just to get rid of all of the small scratches and the swirl marks. You know, for this one, probably just going to be going with the 2. So for the second pass, I'm using the white cotton heads, the white soft polishing heads, and then we'll come back when we're starting to apply the S17. So we'll see you guys at that point. Okay guys, so we went ahead and did our second pass with the polishing compound, and as you can see here now, we have a nice clean, clear finish. So tactically you could just, this is more than enough with more than you would get with the Z.M.S.C compounds. Again, that's just residue left over here. But as you can see, there's little to no orange peel, and buffed up with some wax, and that wouldn't look too half bad. But we're trying to get a nice deep shine, so we're going to get on with the second stage of the compounding. So we finished up with our S3, and we're going to go ahead and move on to the S17 Plus. Now, it's the same process, the same way. So we're going to take the compound, we're going to put it bigger dots, and then we're just going to go ahead and pass it around, thin it out, and work it into the paint. Again, so same way you do every compound step. Get into the crevices with the toothpick, the cotton bud. And again, you can either do it by hand, or you can do it with the rotary tool. If you're doing it with the rotary tool, again guys, use common sense, think safe, put some glasses on or put some safety goggles on there, because again, you wouldn't want this shit getting in your eyes. It's not fun. So there we go. So with the second stage, if you do plan on doing it with your a rotary tool, you're not doing it by hand, we're not going to use the yellow wheels. We're just going to go straight with the buffing wheels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do a half and half. So I'm going to do this side with the the S17, and I'm just going to leave this side with the S3, and then we'll come back and I'll just show you guys kind of the difference between the two. So we'll come back when I've polished this all off here on that fender. Okay guys, we're finished taking care of the second stage in the compounds process with the 17 Plus, and I think you can tell just kind of from a glance here, we've got the nice shine with the S3, looks alright, but just the depth of the color and the depth of the shine going here, even at the S17 Plus, is miles and miles ahead, right? And you can kind of tell there's where the S3 is, kind of all cleaned up, but then you move into the S17, and it's just a nice deep shine going on there, and that's across the entire thing. So there you go, there's a kind of a difference between the two, and why you'd want to move on with each stage properly and carefully. So one thing to note with these compounds especially is when you're kind of doing each new kind of car, you want to make sure that you're changing out the discs. So here's one that I was using on a previous kind of build, and it's gotten hard, and it's got it compounded with the compound in it drying out, whereas these ones I'm starting off with a fresh new one each time. Sort of how you're doing, you do decals, right? You'd start off with a fresh new blade, to make sure that you're getting a nice, clean, precise cut each and every time. Same with sandpaper. If you're starting a different color, or you're sanding something that's not a great primer or something like that where you were using one before, so that way you get a nice, clean, clear result once you've done that. So so we're done with the S. We're gonna finish off the rest of the body here with the S17 Plus, and then I'll come back when we start to put on the S30 Plus. So I'll finish the rest of this and then we'll come back. Okay, here we go. So we've gone over the rest of the body with the S17 Plus, and you can see there we've got a nice deep shine going on, and then again, this can be left as is, and put on your wax, or just leave it as is, put it on the shelf. But we're just going to elevate it another step further, and we're going to kind of, so the S17 will bring the fullness to the color, I find, and bring a nice kind of depth to it. But there is still slight bit of hazing. Compared to the S3, this is a major improvement. But again, we're gonna go the next level. We're gonna get we're gonna make it nice and wet looking, so there's the haze from the lights isn't gonna be there as much, and we're just gonna give it a little bit of wetness. So again, we're gonna do the same thing as we did last time. We're going to do this part here with our S30 on this half, just to kind of show you the difference between our S17 and the S30. So again, same process, just getting into all the nooks and crannies with we're just spreading around a nice thin layer. And again, you can always do this by hand. It's just a personal preference that I've decided to do mine with the rotary tool. So you can go ahead and use the rotary tool if you so wish. And if you do, remember to wear goggles or safety glasses. Bonus if you already wear eyeglasses. Just know that you're going to have to clean them, but you know what? Polishing compounds, if anything, your glasses are going to be nice and scratch free if they weren't already. So there we go. We're going to let that sit for a little bit, and then we'll go over it with the polishing wheel, the white ones, and then we'll come back and show you guys what it looks like after that stage is done. So we're going to let that sit for about 3 to 4, maybe 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and then polish it. Okay, so we've gone ahead and applied the S30 to this side of the body compared to the S17 Plus, and you can see now that as much as there's some depth to the paint here and depth to the color, it's now looking a lot more wet and shiny on this side here. Almost all of the hazing is gone out of it, and now this is kind of ready for something like a liquid wax or a Caranuba wax. So yeah, so that's basically the Shoal Concept system that I guess Carlos has sort of developed here into this fine art, and it's not difficult. It's a lot of time and effort, but again, the results kind of speak for themselves. You've got an absolutely stunning finish that's, you know, just jaw-dropping. You know, you're not going to be able to get anything, you know, like this out of just, you know, putting it something in the airbrush and then, you know, spraying it on and leaving it. Like, this takes some time and dedication to actually get this to work and do it properly. But again, if you're willing to put the time and effort in to get that nice showroom finish shine to your models, then this is the route to go. I don't think I've seen anything else that's as good. So, I mean, we're doing car bodies, so you figure the most logical option to kind of go would be to use, you know, actual products developed for the auto industry. And you know what, it's true. So this is how you'd use the Scholl Concepts you know, polishing system, guys, in accordance with the Gravity 2K colors. It does hold up a lot better. I didn't change my you know, the sandpaper you know, that I was using for you know, the Gravity 2K stuff. You know, none of that changed. I tried using the Scholl Concept stuff on the zero paints, but it just wasn't, you know, there were still kind of little swirl marks because of the fact that the 2K clear isn't as hard as the Gravity stuff. It just wasn't giving, you know, the results that I wanted. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't as Carlos had it when he was showing me some of his work. So, you know, it's definitely the better 2K out of the group. Now, the only drawback that I'm kind of seeing from this is, you know, the price versus size wise, and that was a, you know, a big kind of thing with Future, right? You're going to look at quantity versus quality. So when you were, you know, some people are using Future instead of X22 as an intermediate coat, yes, you get a lot more, you know, Future / Pledge for the amount of money that you would spend on getting, you know, a small jar of X22 or GX Clear. But using something like X22 over Future, you're going to get a more resilient surface. You're going to get a better finish. Again, it's all quantity over quality. So, you know, comparing the Zero Paints jar, which is almost twice, maybe 2.5 times the size. Let me see if I can get it. So we've got 35 mils of the Gravity stuff compared to 100 mils of the Zero Paint stuff. You know, if you like using the Zero Paint stuff, it gives a nice finish straight out of the bottle. I'd say comparatively, they both have the same gloss, the same sheen out of the bottle, straight onto the model. No, you know, no sanding, no polishing, nothing. Almost identical. However, when you go into the stages of, you know, making the body as depth, adding more depth and wetness to the paint by polishing it down, that's where the Gravity stuff seems to edge out in that sense. It's just it dries harder, and it's just going to end up giving you better results in the end. So that's kind of where this is at here, right? Where we're you know, polishing and using you know, something that's equally as the same amount of value monetary wise, but you've got more of it, whereas you're using a product that is about the same price, but you've got a third of the amount. So that's kind of where the toss-up is, and that's something for the individual modeler to kind of go and say, well, I'm fine with just throwing on a gloss and then just leaving it and then putting it on the shelf. Great, that's fine. All the power to you. But if you want a better finish, if you want to improve your skills and start having the edge over the other modelers at competitions or in your groups, then it's time to start looking at something that's going to give you that better end result, and that's the gravity colors, bar none. Now, I would like to try and see if I can get a hold of some some high quality 2K urethane gloss clears from the automotive industry. So something like U-POL, where you're getting a large, almost like a 2 or 3 liter can of clear for you're probably going to spend at the same spec, like about the same size. You're paying half as much for the gravity stuff as you are for the zero paint stuff as you would the gravity, because they're both priced the same, but you're getting about twice or 3 times the amount with the zero paints over the gravity. With the U-POL, it's something like you're 6 times the amount, but for relatively the same price if you were to kind of shrink it down to the same quantities. So that's something that I really want to kind of check out and see, because is it going, using automotive products, will it be just as hard as, say, the gravity stuff? I don't know. Really want to try and see and give it a go. So we might have another, kind of test of this. We might try and see what, does an automotive clear in a large quantity, something similar to, say, Future, does it perform as well as, a product that's, 6 times the amount in the same kind of quantity? Again, it's going to be interesting to see, and I'd like to try it out. But for now, guys, that's going to be this video. Thanks for sticking through and watching it. Go ahead and give us a like if you liked it. If you have any other questions, go ahead and comment down below and let me know what you think. If you have any further questions, something that I can't answer, I'm going to say go over to the Scale Modelers Critique group over on Facebook. Say hi, show us your, what you're working on, and ask for Carlos, and I'm sure he's going to give you a better answer on something than I could. I'm a disciple teaching the masses, or trying to bring out Carlos's message or technique to you guys. So thanks for watching, guys, and have a nice day.